Hey, Marcus here. Thought I'd shoot you a quick video on the accountability upgrade, how to use it in practice to level up the performance within your team and really encourage a culture of accountability. So the first thing that we need to be aware of when we're having these types of conversations is that there's actually three different stages to the conversation. There's the before phase, where we prepare for the conversation, where we take the emotion down a notch, we get really clear on what we're going to say and how we're going to say it. Then there's the during phase, where we're actually managing the emotions and the conversation flow as it happens. And then there's the after phase, where we ensure that people have actually done what they said they were going to do, the way they said they were going to do it. So let's talk through the before phase in a little more detail. The fight, flight, freeze mechanism is something that you will inevitably find yourself in at some point during a crucial conversation. And also, it's important to recognize that the person that you're speaking with will also be feeling like this too. So that's when our heart pumps blood to our extremities and we get ready to fight or get the hell out of there, to run. And worse yet, if we're so overstimulated to the point that we can't even do anything, then we get into that freeze state. So important to just be aware of that and manage your emotions as you're having the conversation, and do your best to manage the other person's emotions too by using and adjusting the words that you're using. Then, before we actually even have a conversation, I think this is where a lot of us get tripped up because of that fight, flight, freeze response and the idea of being in that state. We feel like there's only two choices, the fool's choice. And on the one hand, we feel like we could say something and it could go really horribly wrong, and on the other, and make things worse. And on the other hand, we feel like we could just say nothing and maybe it'll go away, maybe it won't. But there's actually a third choice. And the third choice is that we actually have a conversation the right way, a clean way, and we have a result that's better for us and better for them. So avoid the fool's dilemma. Also, it's really important to understand that it's usually not one thing that winds us up as a manager or a boss or a leader. It's multiple occurrences of something happening which creates a pattern, and it's the pattern that aggravates us and that we start getting concerned about in terms of the impact of that pattern on us or the business. And so before the conversation, we must pinpoint the pattern. There might be multiple patterns, but we really just want to focus the conversation on one key pattern that needs to be addressed. And then rewrite our story. We make sense as human beings of the world through story. And so an event that happens, we then interpret through our own lens, and that story may be accurate, but it may also not be accurate. So we're going to take time to rewrite the story or rewrite some different versions of the story before we have the conversation. A good example of this is the blind and the elephant. Three people with blindfolds on. They're all touching a different part of the elephant and they all think it's a different thing. One person thinks it's a wall, another person thinks it's a snake, another person thinks it's a rope. And they're all right, but they're all wrong. If we take the time to observe the complete picture and look at it from many different perspectives, then we're much more likely to have a fruitful conversation. And lastly, leading with heart. So when you sing, my daughter loves to sing, and we're often talking about head voice and your chest voice. They sound different, the tonality is different, but when you go into a conversation and you lead with the heart, you take the time to get clear on what you want for yourself and what you want for them, what you want for the relationship, you're much more likely to have a good result, because people hear not what you're saying, but how you're saying what you're saying. So it's both and, but take the time to do that. So as we move into the during phase, there is this very interesting statistic in a book called Crucial Conversations, which I highly recommend you read, by Joseph Greene and others. And he says within the first 30 seconds of a conversation, he can tell with 97% accuracy whether the outcome is going to be positive or negative. And the reason and the way that he can tell that is whether the person having the conversation, or leading the conversation rather, is able to diffuse danger. In other words, whether they can make it safe for the people having the conversation and the person that's being challenged to have a discussion about the pattern. And so there's some really helpful sentence stems in this worksheet, the accountability upgrade. There's just, by the way, there's 2 sections to this. The calm card is what you do before you have the conversation, and then the accountability chat map's a way that you can navigate the conversation itself. So opening with safety, make them feel respected and understood. And one way you can sort of preface the conversation is by saying, I don't want you to think that I'm saying this. I don't mean to say that. And that's kind of identifying the objection and pulling that out front. I'm not saying that you're a shit employee. I'm not saying that you're going to get fired. I'm not saying you're not good at your job. What I am saying is this pattern needs to be addressed. Then once we've done that, we want to name the facts. Imagine that you were observing the situation from a security camera or security camera footage. You don't see necessarily a story, you just see objective facts. If you can stick to the facts and not get caught up in things that you're not necessarily sure on, then you're much more likely to have a good result. Then once we've done that, we can actually share our story, and that's bringing our own perspective, but also leaving enough space for the other person to fill in any blanks that there are. A way that you can do that is using phrases, like "it seems to me" or "I wonder if." So again, getting their take is really crucial as you share your story, is leaving room for them to offer a different perspective. So phrases like, how do you see it? Help me understand. So be curious, keep in that curious mindset rather than a judgment of this is what happened and this is how it happened and this is what I'm not happy with. Open up your mind and your body to a different perspective and being challenged. Oftentimes in a conversation, they can get off track when the person who feels under pressure will deflect and bring up specific instances where that hasn't happened or where something different happened. A really helpful framework is CPR, content, pattern, and relationship. The key part in this is coming back to the pattern. So, yep, cool, understand that. Love to talk about that in a separate meeting, but I want to focus this conversation on the pattern. The pattern, the pattern, the pattern, the pattern. And that will stop the conversation getting sidetracked or fish hooked into issues that you don't actually want to discuss. So just keep coming back to the pattern. Then we want to close the gap. So ask them what it would make it easier for them to address this pattern. Is there something systemic that needs to change? Is there some training that needs to happen? So is it skill or is it will? But really being curious and offering suggestions and input there. But in the same token, not overstretching and making it about you. This is not about you. This is about them and their performance. And then lastly, we want an action plan. So who's doing what by when? This is a key step that if you've done all the hard work in the before phase and the during phase, and then you don't have a clear pathway forward, then you've stuffed up this after sequence here, because there's no way that you can come back and check on whether what's been done has been done, because you didn't have a plan in the first place. So really crucial that we nail a simple action plan that has who's doing what by when. So trust has been helpful. If you want help getting more out of your team, building a culture of high performance within your business, then that is something we do with all of our clients most days of the week. So love to hear from you. If that is the case, you can book a call using Calendly, and you can do that in the comment section below. There'll be a link to my account where you can book a call and sing out if you've got questions. Bye for now.